Let's talk about food. And today I have my special guest. She is the CEO and founder of Cucina Fantasma, no other than Miss Lindsey Masterman.
Hi, Daniel. Thanks so much for having me.
Welcome to Food 101, Miss Lindsay, and can you please introduce more about yourself?
Absolutely. My name's Lindsey Masterman, and I'm the founder and CEO of Cucina Fantasma, which is a take and bake vegan lasagna company based in New York City.
Lasagna, lasagna indeed. And Miss Lindsay, let's talk about food entrepreneurship. What inspired you to launch a food business and how did you identify your niche?
Well, I started working in restaurants on the weekends while I had my regular day job in New York. And so I was working at a restaurant called Blue Hill Family Meal, which is a one Michelin star tasting menu. I started working there because I've always been extremely excited about sustainable agriculture and food systems. And Blue Hill is really known for their pioneering of the farm to table movement in the United States. At their farm in upstate New York, they do a lot of climate and sustainability research around food, and they make these seeds called Row 7 seeds, which are bred for flavor retention and climate and sustainability. So in the US, most vegetables are bred to have a lot of water retention because they're sold by weight, which makes a lot of vegetables flavorless. Uh, After working at Blue Hill for about 2 years, I really burnt out because I was working like 80 hours a week between the two different jobs. And so I went to work on an organic farm in Italy, in Tuscany. And there I really fell in love with Italian food and culture and really wanted to bring something back home that was as delicious as the food that I experienced there, but really appealed to the American food lifestyle, which tends to prioritize convenience. So, lasagna seemed like a great thing that I could make and deliver to people's houses that they could just stick in the oven and have a convenient, sustainable, and delicious and healthy meal for them and their family or a couple or their roommates.
Miss Lindsay Masterman, thank you so much for sharing your business to the world, Cucina Fantasma. What behind the title of your business?
Cucina Fantasma means ghost kitchen in Italian, and we'll be operating out of ghost kitchens in New York, which lets us really keep costs and overhead super low for a food business. So we'll be making our food in rented out kitchen units and then selling it via Uber Eats as well as at different pickup locations around New York.
What's your origin story? Did you start in a home, kitchen, farmers, or market, or elsewhere?
I think I started at home, and then about 2 years ago, I started cooking at Blue Hill in the kitchen. So at a professional restaurant after cooking at home for a while.
What core problem or gap in the food industry does your business solve?
In the US, I think that people really lack convenient and sustainable options for full meals. And so we make a product that's sort of higher quality and lower effort, I think of as than something like HelloFresh, because you just get it delivered directly to your door and you can just stick it in the oven without having to do any real meal prep. But you're still getting something that's restaurant quality, doesn't have any sort of additives or artificial ingredients, is completely plant based, and is really fresh and delicious.
Fresh from the farm, indeed. How do you balance creativity in unique recipes with the market demand when developing products? Just like your
Sorry.
lasagna.
Sorry, could you rephrase? I don't understand.
How do you balance creativity in creating recipes with the market demand when developing products? Just like compare your lasagna.
Ah, okay, got it. Well, in my mind, the two go hand in hand. So for me, I would think the more creative you can be with a recipe to fill a niche need, the more market value it might have. Specifically with Cucina Fantasma, we've been making sure to try to innovate in the alternative meat and alternative dairy space to make something that really tastes very much like for like with a plant-based or vegan lasagna versus a regular one. So we've gone through tons of iterations of different types of like I don't think it's fake meat per se because it's not with any additives or anything like that that you might find in some like processed fake meats. But as so we've been going through a bunch of different recipes to create something that makes a really like chewy, bitey, and savory bolognese sauce, and we've really gotten there, which is exciting, as well as with our cheeses for the mozzarella that we use. That recipe was really inspired by a trip that I took to Japan to cook at a restaurant. So I was traveling in Japan and I staged at an Italian restaurant for a couple weeks and learned all about koji, which is the fermented mold that is inoculated into rice. And it's used to make miso and tamari, soy sauce, and a variety of other products in Japan, and sake as well. And I was at a sake bar and tasting some really high koji ratio sakis, and it leaves this really nice, like mold, like cheese mold coating on your mouth in the aftertaste. So I had that sake and I was like, oh wow, like this tastes like cheese. I wonder if you can use koji to make a cheese that really gives you that same reaction that you have when you're tasting a really high quality aged cheese. So I incorporated koji into my recipe to make something that's really unique. And what we ended up with was a lasagna that's really special because every component has a is homemade without additives and with like taste in mind, from a chef's perspective. And so it's a really special dish as opposed to something that's just sort of taking the various existing vegan alternative packaged foods and slamming them together, if that makes sense.
Makes sense, Miss Lindsay, and congratulations because you presenting your amazing lasagna. What's your approach to branding in a crowded market? How do you make your food memorable?
Yeah. So, because we're doing delivery primarily for our individual lasagnas, I decided to put the lasagnas in something that looks like a retro New York pizza box. Um,
Yes.
it's kind of like challenger branding where you use a type of packaging that is common in a different product and combine it with your product in a way that people haven't seen before. And this was so inspired because I would be doing a New York City delivery. And so pizza was top of mind as a lasagna, not necessarily competitor, but something that has a lot of similarities, and packaging could be one of them. But I
Yes.
really stuck with the idea because then looking in like Whole Foods and other grocery stores and looking at the freezer aisle, most packaging just has is the glossy cover with a big picture of lasagna and a red theme, etc. And I realized that a pizza box design would really stick out in a freezer aisle and would really catch someone's eye. Um, and I like the vintage New York type style, and the ghost, which is our logo, fits because it's called Cucina Fantasma, which again means ghost kitchen.
How do you source ingredients sustainably while managing costs?
Yeah. So this is sort of doing a dance between from the managing cost perspective, of course, you're buying in bulk and you're going and looking at some more specialty food distributors, like Baldor in New York is what Blue Hill, the restaurant that I used to work at, used. And so I saw that modeled as a purveyor of really high quality niche ingredients. But the other great thing about some of the ingredients in Cucina Fantasma is to make things like vegan cheeses, you actually use a lot of things like nuts and almond flour. And so once you're getting an organic version of those things, and the vast majority of our ingredients are organic, you can be pretty rest assured that your ingredients are comparatively sustainable, as compared to a animal based product.
Congratulations for that, Miss Lindsay. Congratulations. So, do you think in the future, aside from lasagna, are you offering another Italian dish?
So right now we're just lasagna, and then we'll be offering sides of Parmesan cheese. But the great thing about lasagna is that there are any number of product variations that you can launch in the future. So some things that are rolling around in my head are different variations of lasagna. So like a pesto lasagna, or is one that's more like summertime friendly. So something that's like a lemon ricotta with like blistered sun gold tomatoes. And on our Instagram, once we're up and running, we'll be posting like weekly lasagna recipes that show a different lasagna every week that people can try at home. Aside from just lasagna, the other kind of easy product to launch could be stuffed shells, because it's a popular dish that uses the same ingredients as lasagna, but just arranged differently. And I personally grew up eating stuffed shells, and it was like one of my favorite things. So that could be popular with people as well.
Yes, looking forward for that, Miss Lindsay. What was your biggest operational hurdle, like scaling production or shelf life or distribution?
So we are pre-launch, so I can't say for certain. But if I were to guess what I expect to be a difficult jump operationally, will be down the line when we're, yep, scaling production and moving from me making all of the lasagna, which is what will be happening initially, to hopefully hiring a few employees who would then be making it again by hand, to then making the jump to using a co-manufacturer, finding a co-manufacturer who can get the recipe right without sacrificing on quality or consistency. I imagine will be difficult down the line.
But for sure, you can do it, Miss Lindsay. You can do it. We are here to support you 100%. How did you navigate FDA regulations, food safety, and licensing when starting?
Yeah. So the great thing about operating out of a ghost kitchen is that it takes a lot of that logistical burden. So when you're working in a ghost kitchen, they'll already have gone through all of the food safety requirements to get the facility certified. And then you, as an individual company, just needs to go through either the DOH or the DOA certifications. And the Ghost Kitchen has a lot of resources to help you kind of check all your boxes. So for me, Cucina Fantasma is a packaged good, which again makes the logistical burden a lot lighter than if I was serving food that was ready to eat. So it's packaged, it has the nutrition information as a label on the exterior, and you take it and you bake it at home. So I'm not serving a ready to consume product. For that, you just need to go through a contact at the Department of Health and get your product certified. What is a little more complicated is to deliver through Uber Eats. You have to either be a specialty food store, which does not require DOA certification, or you have to get DOA certification and be considered a restaurant. For specialty food stores, which technically would be what we are, that denomination actually isn't available in most places in the US. So, one hurdle for us so far has been that we sort of have to be double listed under both DOH and DOA because we have to list as a virtual restaurant. And doing that requires just taking a big test and sitting for it in New York, which takes just a few weeks.
Few weeks indeed, and congratulations because you are truly certified. What's been your most effective sales channel? Retail, online, restaurant, or direct to consumer? As you are opening your Cucina Fantasma.
We're expecting it to definitely be direct to consumer. We are considering expanding into food service in the future, in which we would approach different Italian restaurants that might not have vegan options and allow them to put Cucina Fantasma lasagna on their menu, which is a really unique potential revenue stream for us as compared to other food companies, because generally no restaurant would take like an animal based product as an alternative because it would be very easy for them to make in house. But I think that because of our specialized like intellectual property and in our specialized recipes, and the fact that most restaurants don't have um, a lot of plant-based food cooking competency, it would be a whole new skill set that they would need to learn, that there's more promise that we'd be able to get Cucina Fantasma into some really great restaurants.
Miss Lindsay, as CEO and founder of Cucina Fantasma, what are your short term and long term goals?
Short term, we're just excited to get up and running and be selling lasagna in New York directly to people. Longer term, we'd love to be able to franchise Cucina Fantasma ghost kitchens around the country so that different people would be able to get a license and open their own ghost kit or operate out of a ghost kitchen using the Cucina Fantasma branding and recipes and be able to sell lasagna and cheese in whatever city across America.
Yes, good luck to your goals, Miss Lindsay, and looking forward for more success. And what would be your piece of advice for those people out there want to create their own business?
I think it's when you're starting out, it's figuring out a way that you can create a small batch of what your idea is. So for me, I thought I knew that I wanted to start a food company, but it's very difficult to do something like start a restaurant or start like a large scale food operation because it's really high overhead. So the light bulb for me went off when I realized that I could be working out of a ghost kitchen and selling right away because it's such a low overhead way of operating a business. So I think it's about finding a way that you can just dip your toe into a business. And then once you're able to do that, then your idea is real and you'll get a lot of energy based off of that creation.
Thank you for your advice, Miss Lindsay. And before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people, my other podcast, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season, abstract poetry in second season, and my book 101 review in its fifth season too. Comedy 101 in second season, and of course my food 101 in its fifth season as well. Geography 101 and fourth season, and my baby podcast Law 101 and Mental Health 101. Love Letters in third season, Movie 101 Review and Music 101 in its fourth season as well, and Science 101 and Sex 101 in its first season. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast.
Wow.
Miss Lindsay, what's next for your brand? New products, expansion, or partnerships?
We're still focused on our initial launch. So that'll be happening at the end of the summer in New York.
Yes, looking forward for that, Miss Lindsay. And what's your take on mission-driven food brands, sustainability, ethics, or versus profit focus?
I think that for a business, you need both to work. I am starting a plant-based company because I believe in a plant-based future and that everyone should be eating more plant-based food for the environment and for animal welfare and just because and for health and just because it tastes good and it's an exciting new pathway for dining. Um, so I think that once you have your mission, then it's about finding a way that you can make money as a company so that you can keep progressing that mission. Because if you're not profitable as a company, then you won't be able to make the impact that you want to make if you're a for profit organization.
What emerging food trend, functional foods, or alt proteins excite you most?
Um, I'm very excited about lab grown meats and cheeses. I think that that will be a huge step up in a huge way that will be able to mitigate the environmental and animal impact of diets.
Miss Lindsay, share a major setback you faced and how you pivoted.
Hmm. Thus far, our because we're pre-launch and we haven't really gotten into the nitty-gritty of figuring out our operational execution, I think that the biggest hurdle has been figuring out how we'll be able to sell on various channels. And because of some of the specifics of our company being unique in that it appears to be a virtual restaurant, but it's actually a packaged goods company, there's a couple of like technicalities in how like Uber needs to categorize your food in order to be accepted into some of those organizations when we blur the line between food categories a little bit more than other companies.
How do you handle the emotional or financial stress of entrepreneurship?
Yeah, for me, the most difficult thing emotionally is like putting yourself out there and marketing for something that you are making yourself. I find it kind of uncomfortable and almost like there's an itching in the back of my head that I'm being like a braggart or something like that. But I think that knowing that it's a product that other people are excited about as well and that it's sort of the name of the game is helping me like resolve that nervousness.
Indeed. And Miss Lindsay, where do you see food entrepreneurship heading in the next 5 years?
Hmm. I think that it's a lot about figuring out how to make it work for you initially. I think that Fantasma has a pretty innovative business model in that we're using ghost kitchens to get do direct to consumer packaged goods. And so one way that more people could get involved in the space could be creating like convenient and delicious and sustainable and healthy food for families out of ghost kitchens. So I think that food in general is swaying towards more convenient, but also higher quality, more health conscious, and more plant based as well.
Miss Lindsay Masterman, thank you so much for sharing Cucina Fantasma to the world and looking forward for more and more and more success to your business. So can you please invite our listeners to support Cucina Fantasma?
Absolutely. Yeah, if you are in New York, then looking forward to give you some lasagna and otherwise follow us on socials.
Yes, people, let's support Miss Lindsay Masterman because if you support her, more and more and more Cucina Fantasma to come. So, Miss Lindsay, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you as well.
Monica, people, see you soon.